It's time to party when it's talk about you. She's a bad damn pajama, just as fine as she can be. Hey, she's a bad damn pajama, just as fine.
Welcome back, guests, to Blaze Her Trail, where we celebrate the stories, journeys, and brilliance of extraordinary women who are blazing the path for others. I am your host, Dr. Mia, with my brilliant and beautiful co-host,
Aunya Joi.
Today's guest is a woman of wisdom, grace, and remarkable resilience. Hailing from Seattle with roots in Washington, D.C., Laura Wilson is a proud graduate of Howard University twice over, and a trailblazer in finance, federal contracting, and leadership across some of the nation's most influential firms, from like IBM to Deloitte to even CVS Pharmacy. But she's more than a powerhouse professional. Laura is a committed member of the finer ladies of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. A real estate entrepreneur and a creative spirit with a heart for service, sisterhood, and soul. Whether she's managing multi-million-dollar budgets, mentoring the next generation, or transforming spaces with interior design, Laura Wilson reminds us that you don't have to choose just one lane. You can thrive in all of them. So get ready for our conversation full of insight, joy, and inspiration. Today's topic is recession-proof, from your paycheck to your portfolio. So let's welcome the unstoppable Laura Wilson.
Welcome.
Hey, Laura, how are
Hey,
you doing?
ladies, how are you? I'm doing well,
Good.
thank you.
So glad you can join us. She did say this is her first podcast.
Yes.
So we're excited to, bring you into this environment. So thank
All
you
right,
so
I'm ready.
much. So, we're
Let's
going
hit
to
it.
jump right into your story because I believe you have an incredible story to tell. So let's go back to when you had that early money mindset. What did you learn about money growing up, and how was that? How did that shape your thinking process today with your finances? Like anything your parents
Well,
shared?
when I think back, it was really my father that instilled the sense of money in me. He always said, my money is my money and your money is your money, but you need to earn it. So I think setting up an allowance when I was really little was important to understanding the value of money. So if I wanted those expensive, or what seemed to be expensive back then, go to the movies, that $10, then I had to do a few things around the house. And
Right.
so I don't think that concept changes when you become an adult. You make more money, but you should still keep in mind, make sure that you're making enough to afford the things that you want.
Okay.
So try not to spend more than what you earn. So really it just instilled the valuing the dollar.
Yeah.
Joy, did you have the lines growing up?
No,
Like
I
did?
was actually gonna say, like, I like how you mentioned that, because I feel like a lot of parents are moving away from that.
Yeah.
But me having a young daughter, like, that's something that I want to instill in her, because I feel like it teaches them importance. It teaches them responsibility.
Yep.
And it prepares them for when they're older, like you said. So
Yeah, my father was a doctor, and so a lot of people just assume that, oh, you're spoiled, he gets you whatever
Yeah.
you want. And I said, well, you obviously don't know my dad,
Right.
because he grew up during the Depression era. And so I used to call him cheap. He called himself frugal. And so I'm blessed that I appreciate that now, but he did not spoil at all.
That's
Yeah.
good.
He made sure I had the things that I needed, but he made sure that I worked for those other things that I wanted.
Okay.
Yes.
Makes sense.
So speaking of paychecks and money and allowance, what was your aha moment when you realized a steady job wasn't the only way to build wealth?
My aha moment was, working for corporate America is great. It's been lucrative to my development, but I also know that they are businesses, and that there are going to be times when they can't necessarily give you the salary increases that you want or expect. And they may not necessarily give you the bonuses that you may want. And so after a couple of years of not just myself, but others not receiving salary increases or bonuses, I had to figure out another way to bring in some money, and not just a temporary thing, but hey, this is something that I need a secondary stream of income, hopefully for the rest of my life. And if not just one stream, maybe even two, only because things do happen. Recessions do happen. People get laid off. And so, that was the inspiration, once I, saw that those bonuses are not guaranteed. You need to figure out something else.
Do you feel like if you could go back, you would not have your job, or do you feel like you would just go right to like having those other sources of incomes?
Well, I think I come from a different generation. And I think we were brought up to be a little bit more cautious, and we were supposed to have a job for 30 years and retire from that job. And so that's kind of the mindset we were brought up with. The younger generation now does not have that. I think, no, I would still keep my job until I could replace the income that I was making from my salary. And initially when I got into real estate, that was going to be the plan, is that I would, keep maybe some kind of W-2 paying job, but my primary income would come from my real estate.
Okay, makes sense. Because I'm when I first started in corporate America, my parents were like, get a good job, get in a 401k, build wealth, stay there. But after a while, I was like, I'm dependent on this paycheck.
Yeah.
So I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I was in my mid-20s. That was good for me. But I knew by the time I hit 30, I'm like, I got to do something different. Like, I got to add to this thing, because when you make more money, you want more things, right? So
then more money,
yes. So we have a lot of people that may be listening right now that may be living paycheck to paycheck. Like, what's some advice you can give them, like the first step that they can take to kind of get out of dependence of that steady paycheck to paycheck, and they can start building other forms of income? What advice could you give them?
Yeah, I think one of the pieces of advice that I got that didn't necessarily sink in till later was building that emergency fund, savings. And sometimes people think it's overwhelming because they have to save all this money to have a big bank account, but it's just starting with a little bit each month. So even though you might feel like you're living paycheck to paycheck, pay yourself first.
Yeah.
Put something, even if it's just $10 a week. Okay, well, maybe in 2 weeks, make it 20. But that little bit of money builds up over time. And particularly if you're younger, the younger you start this, the more you put that little bit of money away, it will build interest over the next 20, 30 years. And so I would just say, no matter how much it is, put something away for yourself first.
I like that.
I like that too.
I think my dad taught me that. He told me that I wasn't always good at it when I first came out.
Well, that's why I'm saying we get it, but we don't always do it.
We don't always.
It's different when you hear it when you're younger versus when you're actually like, you have to like do it. Yeah, I think
so too, because
I think it's better now because young people have online access to their bank accounts if they have an account, right?
Yeah.
So they're able to really physically see their money grow. If they, their parents make it so they can't touch it, they can see every month. And I think it's good to sit down with them and review their accounts to show them the progress that they're making, so that it does get instilled in their head that, if you do this as you get older, as you're making more money, guess what? It's going to be even more money in your bank account.
So with that, like living paycheck to paycheck, but still, how soon should children get bank accounts? Like to start that, that money growing.
I actually used to be very close to one of my like longtime friends. She actually started, like, her parents started giving her allowances when she was like 10. And so she saved that money over time. And by the time we graduated high school, she was able to put a down payment on her first car. So I look at stuff like that. Like, I think that kids should start early. As soon as you feel like you are able to have responsibilities and earn from those responsibilities, I think young.
Whether you can earn it or, people get a lot of birthday gifts and, money for things like that. Just even with that, put half of it in the bank and then, splurge a little bit with the other part of it.
I think I should have been more diligent when I was, first moved to Cleveland. I was like, I'm on my own. I got to pay my bills. I got a good job. By the time I hit 30, I was like, man, I see what my daddy mean about that emergency fund. Because things start happening in your car. Right. You got to fix your car. Then at that time, I think I had just bought a house. So things started breaking at the house. I'm like, oh, Lord, I got to pay for this, pay for that. When realizing like, dang, if I had that emergency fund, it would have worked out better, instead of waiting on my next check,
Yep.
So I think as I've
Right.
gotten older into my 40s now, I've been more diligent about making sure I have an emergency fund because it is so needed for
Yep.
those people that don't have it.
It
I
is.
agree. So, my next question is, I know that you've held powerful corporate roles and built businesses on the side, which we talked about. How do you decide when to play it safe and when to take a financial leap? Like, I know this is worth the risk. I don't really care about any fear that I'm thinking about. I know this is what I need to do.
Yeah, I actually will take a step back to when I first got into real estate.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was a do or die moment, so I was willing to take the risk, and I was getting into flipping properties back then.
Mm.
It was a little less scary because I had a business partner that was doing it with me.
Okay.
We didn't know initially what we were doing. We both were in finance, so we did have that background, but we're like, we want to attack this as if this is our only choice to make money. And
Mm.
so we, researched, we went to seminars, we got books, the whole nine. And so we were willing to do whatever it took to make it. And so, we were able to build a successful real estate portfolio and make money on rentals as well. Now, the recession of 2007, the housing bubble in
Mhm.
2007 sort of brought all of that to a close for us. And so there were a lot of lessons that we learned, coming out of that whole situation. So I would say that has made me want to play it safer and do things a little differently going
Mhm.
forward, getting back into real estate investing. So just not over leveraging yourself, having that, I wouldn't even call it emergency money, but just making sure that you have enough capital to the side so that you're not even living rental
Right.
coming in every month to month, that you have a cushion in case,
Right.
you have tenants that stop paying or you aren't able to flip as quickly, but just making sure that you have a reserve of something. So I'm a little bit more cautious than I was then. I'm a little older now and,
Mhm.
on the other side of things, I need to make sure I do have some money in the bank for retirement. So I think age plays into it in terms of your risk level as well.
I have a question. So, how did you know real estate was for you? Like, what made you say, I need to start doing investing in real estate?
Yeah.
That's a great question. So I had previously worked for an insurance company and I was a commercial and a residential property adjuster. So I got to go out to properties that had a fire or a flood. I would meet with contractors. So I really understood and learned the construction, business as being an adjuster. So I've always loved houses and design and things like that. But, I had a friend who was a real estate agent at a very young age. We were in college. And so he was doing real estate even then, and I was his assistant back then. So I had exposure to the wealth building, features of having real estate then. And so it wasn't till I was probably in my mid 20s. Yeah, I think I was 25 when I bought my first, 24 when I bought my first house.
Oh, nice.
And that was my first purchase as well as my first construction project. So it was a complete renovation project. We added an apartment in the basement, and then I lived upstairs. And that project did not go well. It went very horribly. And the property actually sat for 5 years before it was finished. So
Wow.
there were a lot of lessons that I learned, with the construction process, getting good people. There are criminals out there who will steal your money. And so I think learning that lesson at a very young age prepared me. Again, I wasn't scared. I went back out there and I did it multiple times even after that. So I think just being surrounded with people who were money minded at a young age was the major influence for me.
That's good.
Yeah.
So you worked 16 years at Deloitte. That wasn't insurance. No, that wasn't insurance.
No, that was
Okay.
finance. I
Okay.
worked at Travelers for a good 4 years.
Okay, I used to have travelers insurance. I actually liked it when I was anyway, sidebar. So you were at Deloitte for 16 years. I know you've probably sat in a lot of meetings, closed door meetings where you talked about leadership and money. What did you learn in those meetings that we need to know out here? Like for those people that were in those meetings, we know it was closed.
Yeah.
They talked about some good things, but what's something that you can share that we probably should apply outside of, having an emergency fund, making sure we are more cautious with our money. Anything you learned from that can help us or help others prepare their
Yeah, I
portfolio?
would say one of the things I learned is making sure that you're doing different scenarios, financial scenarios for yourself.
Okay.
Having a best case scenario, worst case scenario, and then kind of a steady middle of the road scenario. So as we are doing forecasting and budgeting of financials, of course, I think, all the companies I work for, except for Deloitte, publicly traded companies. And so they're trying to maximize shareholder value. So, there's certain things you're going to do when you are responsible for other people's money, right? But you still want to treat it as if it's your own. You want to be very conservative and making sure that you're making the best decisions. So I think you have to think of yourself as the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer of your household, when you make some of your decisions. And, again, I think age plays into some of those decisions. Again, there's some things that you can do as a 24 or even a 30-year-old making financial decisions that you're not going to do when you're 55 and 60 years old because you're trying to make sure your money is in a safe place. And so I think, behind closed doors during, budget meetings or meeting with our CFO or what have you, you need to make sure that you have answers to questions. So maybe you're married or have a significant other, have them ask you questions about some of the things that are going on in your finances. Do you know the answers? Do you know where you're spending your money? Is your money just, are you just swiping your debit card constantly, but you're not really sitting down and taking a look at where the money's actually going? One of the biggest places I'm sure a lot of people's money is going is to eating out, right?
Yes.
That's a big,
Chick-fil-A's.
yeah. So, just really taking a hard look at and understanding your financials. If you don't understand it, you can't change it.
Yeah.
And so you don't have to have an MBA to take a look at what you have going on financially for yourself, but you do need to take some time once a month, every other month, to look at how you're spending. Is it increasing? Is it decreasing? Are there subscriptions that you need to turn off that you haven't used in a while?
Yeah.
Are there charges that you don't even know what they are that you can get reversed? And so, paying close attention to where the money is going out, and then also look for opportunities to try to bring some money in.
Yeah.
Because I heard Rocket Money. I think that's the
I
app.
have that. Yeah.
Are you actually using it though?
I use it to a certain degree, not how I should be, which I feel like that app is actually like a lot of people undermine that, but it tracks your credit. It will unsubscribe subscriptions. It tracks all your budgeting. I like it. I just don't use it like I should be, but I think it's a very useful app. And then it also partners with my mortgage company too, Rocket Mortgage. So that's good.
Any other apps you know of, Laura, that are good for like budgeting and managing, your money that you've used or heard of?
See, I'm at a little advantage because I create my own little spreadsheets and stuff like that.
I do too. I do too.
But I mean, most banks now will even have a little, side app or
yeah, they do.
feature within your banking things that will help you with your budgeting and tracking your finances and things like that as well. So just look within your own bank's application. And I would say at a minimum, just do a download every month of your transactions and take a look at it
What you spent.
just as a minimum, right?
Yeah.
But there are, lots of different apps that you can use. But again, the apps are only as good as you use
them.
So,
Right.
You gotta
Right.
use them, Joy.
Because I get notifications and emails like, you spent this last month. And I'm like, oh, I did. I need to be on this app a little bit more than I thought. So,
No
yeah.
more
yeah, so that's
Chick-fil-A.
even good to set up like alerts to tell you
Yeah.
you spent X amount or your balance is down to here, and maybe set that balance a little higher, right? Okay, well, yep. Let me slow down my spending because I just been swiping.
Yeah.
So you got to hold yourself accountable
Yeah.
to what you're spending.
Yeah. So I know that you said you've obviously we've talked about you in real estate and interior design and your interior design business. And you
Yes.
still manage to work full time. I'm sure you have a family. What does time management really look like for someone building multiple incomes and still having to balance work home life? Like, what does that look like for you?
I definitely have to use my calendar. For a minute, I thought, I could just kind of keep it all in my head. But no, when you've got, like you said, the paying responsibilities at a job, volunteer, that I did with the sorority, and these other businesses, everything has to fit in the schedule. And then on top of that, you got to fit in time for actually getting work done. So there's
Yeah.
meetings, spend a lot of time in meetings, but particularly, scheduling time to, I'll call it my work desk time. So I schedule desk time even at my job. I'll block off my calendar, but even desk time outside of work to get paperwork done for the business or meet with clients or, um, catch up on a new something I need to read to get ahead in my area. But it has to go on my calendar. And so, and even I hate to say just scheduling time with my friends.
Yeah.
Hey, let's put it on the calendar. Let's not just talk about it. Let's
Right.
just book
Yeah.
it.
Intentional
And
timing.
Yep.
as people, we all get busier, we're all pulling out our calendars to try to make sure that we can get together. So that for me, that's the critical thing.
So because I think I've gotten better with putting stuff on my calendar. Like the more I add stuff on my plate, the more I'm like, okay, let me share this with Joy. We got to do this. Let me share this with my husband. We got to do this. Because if I don't, it'll slip over my head and I forget. And on my work calendar at work, I put focus time. If you have Outlook, it
Mhm.
allows you to put focus time on your calendar. So I do that too. That allows me to actually get work done.
Yeah.
Because we're typically in a lot of meetings
Right.
as well at work. So that kind of helps.
Something that works for me and my husband too. I feel like printing it out and putting it up somewhere
Put it on
so
the
that I can
refrigerator.
see it. Yeah, because sometimes like my phone, I can easily swipe that away and I can like go and get distracted by something else. But actually like having it printed out, like I'm such a visual person. It has to be like in front of me. Like my phone, it's in front of me, but I can still
Swipe.
Yeah. So I like it like
Mhm.
in my hand.
And there's some people that still like to use a physical,
Calendar. Yeah.
calendar or a notebook to put all their appointments in. That's just not for me.
What's the small notebooks that people used to have? My mom still has those. The little ones.
From the
Oh,
dollar
the
store.
little calendar,
Yes, she
the
loves
planners.
those.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
little
yeah.
planners.
Yes.
My mom used to get one every year and put it in there
Yes.
with her checkbooks.
Yes.
Her check.
Yeah.
So at the top, you had the
Yep.
calendar, her registry, and then the checks. Her wallet used to be so thick, Laura. I'd be like, Mom, really? So that's the heaviest thing in her purse. But I'm going to get back to that because I do have it on my refrigerator. But the last date, it says it's April. We're in May. So I got to
Okay.
get caught up, make
Yeah.
sure we
Right.
visually see it because that does help actually seeing it. But
Yeah.
putting it on the calendar is the biggest thing.
Mhm.
I think for me, not doing that could, I fear that I miss something.
Yeah.
And when we are dealing with money, a lot of times people have fear about making decisions about money. So
Yeah.
you've already shared, you bought a property when you was 24, it kind of set for 5 years. But was there ever a time where you feared a decision you made, but then actually once you did it, you was like, I'm glad that I did make it because now I see, the benefits from it versus fearing my decision up front?
Yeah. So yeah, bought the first house at 24, and subsequent to that, between myself individually and my business partner and I together, we had accumulated probably between the two of us over 30 properties.
Oh,
And so, once the recession happened and pretty much got rid of everything, was down to the house that I now live in. So my fear was, because we were still going through the recession at that time, that I wouldn't get to complete the house because it was another construction project that went bad. And so, my decision was, and I came to a crossroads where I could have walked away. I just could have said, it's not going to get done, walk away and start over. But I took a gamble and put together a plan, a little business plan on how I would get the work done, completed, and because I needed more money to finish the construction. So I put that proposal together. I called the bank president and said, "Can we set up a meeting?" It was a smaller bank. I met with the president and vice president of the bank, showed them my proposal, and they gave me more money to finish the project.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Without filling out an application or anything. So who does that in the middle of a recession? So, I gambled on being professional, showing I have a plan, and, I'm sure they didn't want to get stuck with the house. And so I'm really glad that I did do that because, it's now 17 years later, and I'm, here in the house. And
Did you
property
already know the
values have gone up.
president?
Well, I've been in communication
Okay,
with
so it was
them
a
because we
relationship.
were,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, that's we talked about that on a previous episode. We said sometimes it is about who you know in
Yeah.
your network to get stuff done.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you had
Yeah.
already built that connection and it paid off.
I hadn't really built a connection per se. I just had been in communication.
Okay.
I had good intentions. They saw I wasn't, just trying to scam them or anything. So I think it's also about who your character, making sure people
Yeah.
know that you're a good character
Yeah.
and that you're trying to do the right thing and that you're professional. So your reputation is everything. And so yes, as you get to know people and network, you want to make sure that your reputation does precede you.
Right.
Because if it's negative, you know how that's going to turn out too.
Right. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
So I know we touched on a little bit about your federal contracting and you working in tech. How do those industries prepare someone to weather a financial storm?
Well, we see that technology is always evolving, and so there's always going to be the latest and greatest this in technology. And so there are tech companies that pop up and go away, and you just always have to stay ready for whatever the next best thing is. And so I think in the last umpteen years that I've been supporting technology organizations, I think it's taught me just to always, keep your skills sharp
Mm-hmm.
and make sure that you are prepared. We've kind of had some up and down cycles, maybe not a recession per se lately. Well, I guess we're going into one, but just seeing people get laid off, particularly at the drop of a dime, to make sure again that we can save the job. And these are mainly contractors. They usually start with the contractors.
Mm-hmm.
So making sure that you are prepared for those type of scenarios when you start to see the economic downturn, that financially you are ready. And so yes, we've talked about the emergency fund, but also, having those other streams of income to carry you in the event that you do face some type of a layoff as well.
We talked about that too last week. Having other skills along with like other forms of income can help you if it is, like a recession or anything, because let's say you do get laid off. I've had friends that's been laid off,
Mm-hmm.
and I've had one that's
COVID was a big year for a
COVID
lot
was
of
a
people.
huge year. And I think for them, some of my girlfriends, they had other skills, so they were able to bounce back and get some positions. But then I had
Right.
some, I'm not going to say friends, I'll say associates that were like, hey, can you help me find a position? And I'm like, well, what's your skills? And they only had one skill. And I'm like,
For people who don't know what skills are, like what their skills are.
that's true too. So sometimes it's like you got to be prepared, not only looking for those extra streams of income, but also
Mhm.
make sure you have those skills so that you can. Because for people know me, like I do work in corporate America, but I'm also a professor. So that's like my other form
Right.
of income. And I love being a professor, but it yeah, I'll just leave it there. I love being a professor. Y'all don't want nobody to hear my secrets, but I love being a professor. So outside of working in corporate America, because I still get to deal with students along with corporate America, I get that experience and networking with other like-minded engineers that I do enjoy. So that's one thing I do like.
Yeah, I would just say, try to get a certification in
Yeah.
something,
Yep.
try to get licensed in something. So of course, yeah, I have my real estate license, but if you are interested in IT, go get some IT certifications. You could
Yeah.
do some side work doing IT. You could go get licensed as a nail technician or doing hair. You could do hair on the side. So there's all kinds of things. But obviously the best thing is to do something for passive income. That means you're not having to physically be there to do it.
Yeah.
So my suggestion, particularly as we appear to be heading into a recession, is if you have a house and you have extra bedrooms, why not rent one of the bedrooms out to a friend? That's easy
Mhm.
income, 6, 7, 8. Some areas you can get up to $1,000 to rent a room.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
So you're making money while you sleep when you do stuff like that. So think how many hours you would have to work to make that same amount of money each month. So yeah, renting out a room, you want to get your real estate license. Think about areas where there are always going to be a need. So there's a shortage of nurses, right?
Yeah.
So, getting some type of nursing certificate. There's just a whole host of things, but if you don't have a skill, develop a skill.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good.
Develop a skill for those that's listening now, please.
Yeah.
And know what your skill is.
Well, we're going to shift just a little bit. I've been a member of Zeta Phi Beta for 18 years, and I know you've been a
Mhm.
member for 35 years.
I have, even though, I'm only 36 now.
No, that's fine. I'm only 19. I got you. But how important is the sisterhood and community when we are trying to help others build wealth and staying grounded? Because we do have sessions where we have our embellishment sessions, or we come in and talk about extra topics that only enhance our current protocols and procedures within the organization, but other things that may enhance our members. So how does sisterhood and community help you, or how's that a foundation for you for helping people build their wealth?
It's a foundation for me because, I have served in numerous financial roles within the sorority. So, I've had the opportunity to serve as like a treasurer, financial secretary, budget and finance chair. And it's given me the opportunity to work with sorors who may not have a financial background,
Mm-hmm.
who want to learn about financials and budgeting. And so, unofficially, I guess, mentoring and teaching
Mm-hmm.
those sorors the skills it takes to be a financial officer, so that they can serve in those capacities, move up in different levels like the
Mm-hmm.
state, region, or even at the international level, to be able to have those skill sets to serve in those roles. Doing some of the embellishments that you talked about and just, learning about budgeting. We've had the opportunity as a chapter president as well to bring in people to talk about, life insurance
Yeah.
and just home financial management and financial investing. And people don't know because a lot of people don't have insurance. So they
Right.
end up setting up GoFundMes for funerals and
Yeah,
things like
that's sad.
that. So, doing those kind of webinars, through, the means of the sorority at different levels is very important. Of course, one of the initiatives, D-Free, partnering with D-Free, our international organization, help people pay down their debt. We talked about not getting overwhelmed by the big number that you may have to pay down, but just start getting carving off a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time. And so as you start carving down your debt and start building up your savings, you're putting yourself in a better position. So, the sorority is another vehicle that helps to get the message out about financial literacy.
That's good.
Yeah.
I'm so proud to be a part of that illustrious organization. Just want you guys to know.
So I know we talk often about a title, and we love a title. I mean, I think having titles are important, and
Yeah, I
it
like Dr. Mia. I do.
yes. But behind all of those degrees and promotions and all the titles, who was the woman figuring out how to make money work for her? What was she going through? Like what was going on behind the scenes? Behind all the titles, behind all the promotions, the big letters, all the alphabet, what was she going through?
She isn't you, Laura.
Okay. So I would say for me personally, I don't get caught up in titles.
Okay.
Whether I'm working in corporate America and sitting down with the CFO, you're another person just like I am. You have a lot of experience, and even for me, whatever titles I've held, I'm still Laura.
Yeah.
And so, so putting that aside, I don't get trip off of that at all. But for me, I can say honestly, I've hit the low lows financially. I've hit a low, like the lowest of the low, and I've done really, really well as well. So I think having been on both ends of the spectrum, is very humbling. And there's certain places I don't want to ever get to again, financially, because that does take an emotional toll.
Oh, yes.
When you are, I can't even say scraping paycheck to paycheck. Well, when there's no paycheck.
Yeah.
So if you've ever gotten laid off, and you didn't have any savings, and what am I going to do? And how am I going to eat?
Yeah.
I've been blessed. I've never had to go on assistance because I've kind of figured some things out. I did have some savings, and again, I had some other income, but I just never want to be in that position again. And so that was a fuel to motivate me to figure out another way,
Yeah.
and never let myself get into that position again. And so having been on the other side where, there was a point where when I was little, I always said I wanted to be a millionaire, and I didn't even know what really being a millionaire was. I just heard that cool thing to be. And so I always strived to be a millionaire. And so, when I guess on paper, and here's the difference between being a millionaire on paper and then a cash millionaire. There's a difference. And I learned the difference. So on paper, yes, I was a millionaire at one point before the bubble crashed, with all the real estate and all that kind of stuff. But there's a difference between being a millionaire on paper and having that cash in the bank. And so I'm learning through that lesson, okay, I want to now strive to have that money in the bank so
Yeah.
that, I can have that cushion there. So I think, just making sure that you've learned from your experiences and you stay humble, and having hits to your financials will definitely humble you. So I definitely wouldn't wish that on any.
Well, that's good because I was just about to ask you, what does financial freedom look like for you? Is it a number, a millionaire? Is it a lifestyle? Is it something totally different? Like, what's your personal definition of financial freedom?
Yeah, financial freedom right now, I do have a retirement target that I won't disclose, but it's not even so much a number anymore. It's making enough money so that I don't have to work if I don't want to.
Gotcha.
That I'm able to afford the lifestyle that I have. I have income passively coming in or from retirement, or maybe there'll be Social Security, but and that's the other thing. I don't even want to rely on that Social Security
Right.
because as we see, it may not be there.
Yeah.
But having enough income to live life very comfortably and making sure that I don't have any, debt.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, for someone sitting on their couch in the audience, listening, viewers, thinking that they're too late or they don't have enough to start, what is something that you would say to them? How do they start where you like when you started? Like what is something that you would tell them?
I would say start with a little bit of whatever you have. One of the things that has been helpful, and I use it every day now to just calculate scenarios because I'm just a geek, but go to like I think it's calculator.net, and they have all kind of different calculators, financial calculators, and you can even plug in, okay, if I invest $10 today, this is for the younger people,
Right.
30 years from now, if I put $20 a month in the bank, how much will it give me in 30 years? It'll show you. So you can
Okay.
just play out all these different scenarios to see, hey, if I increase it by $5, it'll give me this much. So I think seeing the numbers and what it'll be in the future helps motivate you to just do a little bit. And as
Yeah.
you do that, do a little bit more, do a little bit more. So, that's why I said, even if you're paycheck to paycheck, just put that Starbucks money, aside and put it in the bank. Buy some stock or, do something with it other than spending it on somebody else's. Yeah.
Mhm.
You know what? I did learn a technique before. I forgot her name, but she was in real estate, and she said one technique she tells her clients. I don't really carry cash. Do you carry cash?
No.
Laura, do you carry cash?
No.
Okay. What she was saying was I don't know a lot of people who carry cash, but at that time we were in that little workshop. It was a lot of people that did carry cash. They were a little bit older. They believe in the cash versus the swipe. But they said if you take out
Mhm.
$20 and you spend $20 because you got to break it, if you get ones back, all the ones you get, put them in a shoebox.
Mm.
Don't put them back in your pocket. So by the time you get to the end of the year, you need to go back and see how much money you saved from just the ones. And she said you can start with ones, and then you can start with $5, and then you can move up to $10. Because if you take out a 20, which typically comes out the
Right.
ATM, you're not going to spend the whole 20 at that time. You may or may not. But if we go to Starbucks, get my regular order, I'm gonna spend $8.58. So that means I shouldn't know that, but I do.
Yeah. And similar to that, so I don't know if you can plug apps, but Acorn
Yeah.
Oh,
is a
yeah.
nice app. And so like I have an Acorn account where it will just it puts rounding up numbers into
Mhm.
that account. So if something costs $4.95, it'll round it to 5, it'll put the 5 cents in my account.
Oh,
So
love it.
between doing the roundups and have it, I think I do $50 every 2 weeks. It goes to that particular account. And over time, even that little bit adds up. So I have other accounts, but that's just one easy tool that, swipes money and I don't touch it and it goes to that account. So whatever method works for you, whether it's like where you're saying put in the shoebox, or having an app swipe your your virtual change, you got to do a little bit of something. And so I would say even in terms of buying property, you've never bought a property before, talk with an agent who can then connect you with a mortgage broker to talk about what things you need to do to prepare to buy it.
Okay.
And sometimes it's not as hard or complicated as you might think.
Yeah.
And, there are programs out there to help first-time home buyers. There are
Yes.
grants to help with down payment assistance. Depending upon where you live, your city or your state may have additional grants as well. And so if it's just a matter of, whether it's getting your credit score up or paying down some debts, if somebody's going to give you a gift, towards your down payment, 9 times out of 10, we can make it work. It just may take you a few more months to get ready, but you want to be ready because you don't want to get in that property and then be struggling, to pay your mortgage too.
Yeah.
So it can be done.
Okay. Well, I think it's time for us to jump over to our hot seat questions, Laura.
Oh, shucks. Okay.
Hot seat. I like these because this gives a little bit more depth into the conversation, but it's also, we nosy. We like to get your business just a little bit. So
I'm
when
ready.
we answer these questions, we're going to answer them, and then you just say the first thing that came to mind. Okay?
Okay.
So welcome to the hot seat section. So first big girl purchase after your first real paycheck. What was your first big purchase?
A car.
Okay. Budget
My
spread.
first car
Oh,
was,
go ahead.
yeah. Oh, sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
no, no. What's your first car?
My first car was a brand new Honda Accord.
Oh,
I used to love
Hondas
that.
are good cars, though. I like the 2025s there. Yeah, nice. Budget spreadsheet or ballpark in your head?
Budget spreadsheet.
What's one financial flex you're secretly or do not secretly or you're not secretly proud of? Like, what's that one flex that you keep?
That's a good flex.
It could be good or bad.
I'm gonna pass. I'll come back.
Okay.
What's the most expensive thing you don't regret buying?
Ooh, I thought you were gonna say regret. That I don't regret buying. I would say probably my house.
Okay.
Recession hits when the one luxury you still keep. So if the recession hits, like you said, what's that one luxury thing you keep?
My car.
Okay.
Stocks, real estate.
Not the Honda Accord.
Okay.
Stocks, real estate, or business ownership. You can only pick one.
Real estate.
Okay. That's good.
What song is on your Boss Woman of a Budget playlist?
Meeting in the ladies' room.
Oh,
I like that. Would you rather build a dream home from the ground up or own a block of income producing properties?
Own a block of income producing property.
I like that. Yes.
What's one money myth you want every woman to unlearn?
That you should not have your own mad money. You need your own mad money. If you're married or whatever, just make sure you have your own little savings.
Stash.
Your stash. My grandmama taught me that.
Yes. What's your personal mantra when the money feels funny?
Stop spending so much.
That's fair. And we're going to go back to the other one. What's one financial flex you're secretly or not secretly proud of?
Secretly proud of managing my own stocks.
I like that.
I don't have a stock. So I'm managing my own IRA accounts, buying my own stocks. Yeah.
So even the do you have a 4? I'm not trying to pry, but what I'm saying,
So
like,
I have
you
a
work for the government.
401k. I have 401k.
Okay.
Well, I work for a company, but I also have an IRA account. I open, and so I'm managing that, and I'm kind of venturing into a non-traditional diversifying, so I can do real estate type stuff through that IRA.
Oh, that's good.
So I have a self-directed IRA.
Okay.
I have
So
a question that we have not talked about. Are you doing any workshops? Anything coming up to help people, kind of manage their money or prepare their families? Because I think,
not yet.
okay.
Stay tuned. Stay
Okay.
tuned.
Because I think now, we don't, coming out of high school, I didn't learn really anything about money other than how to write a paycheck, what
Yeah.
your paycheck looks like, what taxes come out. And I think the older you get, you still need to refresh your memory
Yes.
on managing money and financing. Because the older you get, for me, my priorities shift in what I need as far as financially. So it is good to refresh that. So Laura, if you do have anything, please share it with us so we can share it with our audience.
Yes.
So that
I
people can
will.
come out and attend. So
Yes.
Yeah, that's why I said financial planning. And there's different aspects of financial planning, but it's so important. And like you said, depending upon where you are in your life, it can be different. So if you're coming right out of college, that's going to be different. And I would say parents of kids that are going into college, like a good financial flex is if you're able to afford to buy a property in the town where your child is going to school, buy a condo, 2-3 bedroom condo, they can live there. Their friends can rent the other rooms, right? So you're building wealth while they're in college.
that's smart.
Yeah.
So just a little
Flex. We got to think about that since we got little girls.
Yeah.
So once they get to college, we can definitely look into that.
Yes.
So this has been insightful.
Very.
So thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Thank you all for having me.
You're
It's been fun.
welcome.
So today, I just want to say Laura has been a blessing to us. And just another great reminder that she just showed us excellence doesn't come from titles, because we talked about that.
Yes.
It comes from showing up with purpose and passion.
Yeah.
You tell she's really passionate about this financial budgeting and planning. I think I appreciate that. And the willingness to serve others.
Yeah.
So from
Absolutely.
boardrooms to sisterhood, from finance to family, Laura has blazed her trail with grace today, with grit and generosity. And she's the proof that it's never too late to pivot, to grow. We talked about that. Or to lead with intention. To every woman listening today, keep evolving, keep expanding, and most of all, keep blazing your own trail. I'm so glad you joined us, Laura. It's been a blessing. So until next time, stay bold, stay brilliant, stay true. I am your host, Dr. Mia, with the amazing co-host,
Aunya Joi.
and we'll see you guys next time together on Blaze Her Trail. Good night.
Bye.
Ocean, beautiful sight to see. I get so excited, feel her anatomy. She feels, whoa, she stands. Got all the girls of me like, yeah. She feels, whoa, she stands. Got all the girls of me like. Look at her, she's a bad, she's a bad.